Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. It is Tuesday, the 17th of October, 2023. My name is CareyHolzman, and thank you guys so much for tuning in, joining me here hopefully you're joining us in our live chat room. Hello, everybody in the chat room. Welcome in. Let's see. Thank you to Roy Starman for a $10 super chat before the stream started. Thanks for your insights yesterday on SSD NVMe use in a NAS. Alan Lindos with $7.77 in super chat says, I'm on time for a change today, Carey. You are starting an hour later than usual, so here's my early fee. Thank you, Alan. And Paul O'Brien joining us from Ireland with a €2 contribution. Welcome in, Paul. Thank you all for supporting the channel. And today I have something I've never reviewed before, a QNAP network attached storage device, QNAP NAS. And this sells for $599. It never ever goes on sale. It's the price it was released at, and it's the price it stayed without any sales that I'm aware of ever. It will hold 4 M.2 drives, and I have 4 M.2 drives here on the table. These are the TEAMGROUP 4 terabyte Gen 3 drives. We don't want to get faster drives because can't really even utilize the full speed of these. And we'll spend more money to get something faster that we can't really utilize that'll likely run hotter, which won't benefit us. So why spend more money and deal with more heat when, or potentially, when we can get these 4 terabyte drives for about $160 a piece? We get 4 of them. That's a total of 16 terabytes. And now when we put it in a RAID 5 configuration, that means that any one of the 4 can fail and we won't lose any data at all. Each drive contains data from the other 3. And that's what a RAID 5 gives us, is the ability to have any one of the 4 fail. And this doesn't impact us at all, except that if we don't replace the failed drive, we no longer have a spare. One of these is not designated at the spare. Whichever one fails is considered that's the spare one that failed. But any of the 4 at any time can be the spare. Once it goes bad, we have to replace it. It'll rebuild the data from the other 3. And then during that whole thing, that whole process, you don't lose any data. You can continue to use the unit. You just don't want to procrastinate replacing it, because again, if a second drive fails before you've replaced the first one that failed, now your data is gone, and I hope you have backups. This is not a backup unit. You'd have to have a second one of these to use one for backups, and ideally have it out of the building in a different location. So if the building is if it burns down in a fire or an earthquake, a flood, a burglary, or even if you get a virus that ransomwares everything, you've got another copy of all the information on it. Hopefully that was updated relatively recently. And so you can get back in business again and not have to pay any ransoms and not deal with any data loss and not go through all that stress and anxiety. The reason we got here and why we have this today is a client of mine that I used to work for decided to go in a different direction about 5 years ago. And they've been through 5 technicians in 5 years with no policies or procedures for the technicians to follow other than whatever the technician thinks is best. They're hiring an expert to take care of it for them, so they don't know how things are supposed to be. That's what they hire the tech for. So every tech does it a different way. The tech they've got now apparently doesn't understand NASs, couldn't figure out how to make them work, and put all their data up into the cloud. So they've got 3 terabytes of data in some cloud service, and their complaint is whenever we go to access files, it's really, really slow. So they want to go back to the NAS because it was faster, but the NASs are all screwed up because nobody's maintained them. It's like never changing the oil in the car. So I'm in the process of putting all the maintenance and all the missing updates and whatnot onto the older NASs, but they do want to retire those. The reason I'm cleaning them up is we want to extract the data from them because they're pretty convinced that everything's not in the cloud like tech says it is. And so my plan is to replace the Synology NASs with the QNAP because Synology is not making a competitive NAS at this time, at least not in this price range. Synology doesn't offer a 2.5 gig network port until you about double the cost of the NAS. For whatever reason, Synology thinks that's an enterprise thing, which, you know, motherboards are being sold with 2.5 gig, routers all have 2.5 gig on them now. Seems silly that the leader, I consider Synology a leader in network attached storage. They've been really dropping the ball. They've just been kind of resting on their laurels. If I want an NVMe only NAS, Synology doesn't make one. SUSE makes one. QNAP makes one. If I want an affordable NAS that'll take 2 or 4 drives, that's 2.5 gig networking and a decent processor, I can spend less on TerraMaster and get more for my money. Synology can offer decent performance with 1 gig networking for like $50 more than the TerraMaster. I don't know what's going on at Synology. I hope they turn it around because, quite frankly, I'm being forced to use their competitors. Like Synology's newest NASs are using a Realtek, I think, CPU. It's very strange. A weird cost-cutting decision. QNAP, a SUSE store, TerraMaster, I think, are all Intel-based CPUs. I don't know that that makes much difference, but I certainly like the compatibility and known reliability of Intel stuff. Although I'm sure there are alternatives that Synology is using is adequate for that purpose. It's not a rocket ship. So it's just one more thing that I'm just rolling my eyes at, wondering what the heck are they thinking over there at Synology? Why are they resting like the tortoise and the hare? Them being the hare, they think they're so far ahead of the game they don't have to work as hard. I don't know. I don't know what the logic is here. I think they're making a grave mistake because they're forcing me now to go to their competitors so that I can provide my customers with what they need within the budget they have. And Synology has nothing on the table in that regard. So I installed one of these QNAPs for one client already, just as an experiment to see what it was like. Client absolutely loves it. Say it's much, much faster than the old Synology, the 2.5 gig networking. The system they bought from me has 2.5 gig built on the motherboard, and I put a 2.5 gig switch. Well, they don't necessarily know what any of that means. Combined with the faster processor this has, combined with the faster storage this has than, say, a mechanical drive, all they can tell me is this thing runs like it used to. And at first I was like, you mean it's running bad like it was running? You're like, no, it's running really good like it used to run way back when I put this Synology in a few years ago. Because I told them, I said, look, if this doesn't work out for you, I'll buy it from you and I'll make a video out of it. And we can look to replace with the Synology with the one that's 2.5 gig, but it's going to cost 2 to 3 times more money. Or you learn to live with it being slow. So anyway, they love it. So then when this other customer reached out, the one I hadn't worked for in 5 years, they want me to grab the data off of the 2 old NASs. One of those NASs I installed years ago when I was their technician. And I was their technician for 10 years. And they let me go completely by surprise. I didn't do anything wrong. There wasn't an argument. They felt like they were paying me too much. Even though I never raised the rate. They paid me the same amount every month for 10 years. They never paid more. They never had a downtime. They never had any downtime. They've never had any data loss. And anything that was off contract that they asked me to do, I just did it rather than nickel and dime them. You know, this isn't included. This isn't. I just take care of it. I took care of maintaining all the computers, antivirus. That I paid for all of that. Made sure that the computers were maintained. If any of the employees had a question, they could call me on the phone, and the owner of the company didn't have to deal with any of that. If the owner or his wife who work from home sometimes had a computer problem, I put that in the contract that I'll include those as basically office computers. But, you know, his office is over here, his home is over there. And anyway, so when they let me go, I was pretty pissed off. I just thought the courtesy of giving me some notice would have been a professional, kind thing to do. Like, if you weren't planning to renew the retainer, maybe let me know that instead of waiting until the retainer's past due and I go, hey, you know, did you guys not get it? Are you out of town? Oh, no, we decided we're going to go a different way. Well, this would have been good for me to know a couple of weeks ago. And they said, well, if you could just go ahead and work with your replacement, we'd appreciate it. I'm like, no. What do you mean, no? I said, well, you're not paying me. I'm not working. You think I'm working for free? Like, you need to renew the retainer if you still want to keep me on. I'm more than happy to work with my replacement. I'm just not going to do it for free. I'm sure you wouldn't work for free either. So the whole thing just kind of got messy. I forgot to turn this on. And yeah, I just said, whatever. And they even asked me, like, there was kind of a heads up that they were thinking about this when they said, in a meeting, they asked me, what would happen if we didn't utilize your services anymore? I don't know. They're implying that I'm not doing anything because I do it remotely, most of it, and they don't see me in the office. So they think they're paying me too much because they don't see me work. But they've never had any downtime and they've never had any data loss in 10 years. And I asked them, do you think that's just coincidence? I mean, I said and I told them, in my line of work, I usually hear, nothing ever breaks. Why are we paying you? Which is what they were doing. Or everything's always breaking. Why are we paying you? So I said, look, if you stop changing the oil in your car, how long do you think your car will last? What I'm doing is maintenance. I'm being proactive. If you want to wait until the car breaks down, it'll probably happen in the worst possible time. The damage will probably be significant. The repair will probably be significant, expensive, and time consuming. What I'm doing is preventing that from happening, or at least statistically putting the odds in favor that I've got offsite backups. That's why you've never had any data loss. Antivirus is kept up to date. Temp files are removed. Computers are always updated. And I'm fielding support calls from your employees that you don't know anything about, frequency with which they call. And I'm not complaining, happy about doing it. But, when you take your car to get the oil changed, you don't see the people working on it, do you? Like when you go to the dealership and you take your car to the dealership, that car goes in the back. You don't generally get to see them working on it. And there's nothing wrong with the car, but you want to keep it that way. So then when they're done, they bring the car out. The car looks and runs exactly the same way as it did when you brought it in. They claim they've changed the oil and did these inspections, but you don't really know they did that just because it says it. And then you give them some money, you pay them, and then you drive away in your car that drives exactly the same as it did when you brought it in. So what if you just stop doing that? What if you just stop changing the oil in the car? Will your car last a year, 5 years? I said, more than likely, it's really just a question of time. So when I got the phone call, one of the employees called me and said, well, it's exactly the way you said it was, Carey. It was a matter of time, and now here we are, and we are screwed. So if you're willing and if you're available, I'd like to hire you. And I'm like, well, how do I know I'm going to get paid? And, am I going to be unwelcome if I show up in the office from the people who let me go? I mean, I don't know what I did to deserve it, but I don't want to be somewhere where I'm not welcome. And I don't want to work for somebody that may not pay me. So he's like, well, I'll get all that cleared and everything. And, a lot's changed since then. And I like this guy, and I've always liked this guy, and he's always had my back. And he tried to convince the owners of the company. He was my champion when I wasn't there, and they're talking about me to defend me and support me, recommend they keep me on, and they didn't listen to him. But now he's suffering because there's data that's missing. They don't know where it is. The cloud service is painfully slow. And he knows that they never had these problems when I took care of them. And he says that the company may soon be his, maybe. And if it is, he'd like to hire me back on and go back to the way things were. So I said, oh, that sounds great. I'm happy to help you. And said, we're going to want to replace these NASs. And I said, here's what I would recommend for you, since Synology doesn't really have anything to replace that's worth upgrading to from what you already have. But if we do the QNAP, it's smaller. We put the NVMe drives in it. It'll give you twice as much capacity than the NAS has now. With 4 terabyte drives, we lose 1 drive in storage capacity for redundancy. So we'll have 12 terabytes. And I think they only have 3 terabytes, between 3 and 4 terabytes of data, a little over 1 million files. They said, when can you start? I said, as soon as you say, do the work, I'll get the parts ordered, and here we are. So he approved the work on Sunday. I ordered this yesterday. It came in. No, I ordered it Sunday. It came in late last night, and here we are. So I thought, what a great opportunity for me to show you sort of an unboxing and review of the unit, since I've already had my hands on one for the other client. It's not going to be a total surprise to me what's inside the box and how it comes apart. And I thought, make a video out of it. I got to do this anyway, so kind of double dip, if you will, and take care of my client and at the same time get some new content. So that's where we're at. And this is the QNAP TBS464. Now, a link for this and for the drives is in the video notes below this video. And if I go to Amazon here, I should be able to pull this up. QNAP. Let's see. Yeah. Let's go over to screen share. This is the unit, the QNAP TBS464, 8 gigs of RAM, has 4 M.2 slots. It's an Intel Celeron 5105 or 5095. It's a 4-core CPU, 2.5 gig networking, and it doesn't come with the drives. A little pricey. I think QNAP's overcharging a bit for this, but it's not like much competition. It's this or the ASUS store. And I'm not real, I don't know, the ASUS store's been a little flaky as far as like dropping the network connection and sort of having to turn it off and back on again to unfreeze it or to get it to show back up in the network browser. The QNAP, on the other hand, seems much more responsive. Of course, it's smaller. Ironically, it's about $150 more than the ASUS store. As for the NVMe, we're going to use a TEAMGROUP 4 terabyte. See if I can find it in here. Basically, yeah, the MP34. I think if you have Prime, it's about $10, a couple dollars cheaper, I thought. Anyway, we're going to use 4 of these, 5-year warranty. I've already got them here. And I've had really good luck with these. These are just Gen 3, so only 3,500 on the right, reads rather, which is about maximizing what Gen 3 can do. So no sense going any faster because they're only going to run about 2K out of this unit. That's what we're using today. Turn that off and we'll go back over to chat room here. Planet Cryos contributes $2. Says, hello there, you. Well, hello there. I sound like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Hello there. Garfield Rupe, now a member for 10 months. He says, I'm getting close to being a 1-year member. You are so close. Thank you for continuing your membership here, Garfield. Hey, Planet Cryos, another $2 in Super Chat says, from me to you, hi. Right on. Thank you, Planet Cryos. All right, so let's get this thing unboxed and see what's in here. And I'll show you how it's packaged. If you decide to order one of these, you'll know what to expect. Bull142 joins us and says hello. Crystal in the chat said, this device specifically is one I'm interested in because my motherboard only supports a single NVMe device. I plan on buying a few drives soon. Crucial has the Gen 5 4 terabyte for over $200. each. Yeah, well, you wouldn't waste your money on anything other than Gen 3 for this, because you can't. In fact, I wouldn't waste my money for anything Gen 5, period. But if I was going to waste my money on Gen 5, it would go into a 13th gen Intel or 14th gen Intel motherboard where you could actually have a benefit of Gen 5. Otherwise, it's just going to run at the next slowest speed. So you just wasted your money. Okay, so let's see how QNAP packages this. Oh, I see this opens this way. This opens this way. A box that was shipped in a box. Hey, look how tiny. It looks like a router. Total cost on this is about $1,300. Now, if you wanted to go with, say, 4 2-terabyte drives, you could probably do that for about $400 less. So around $900 complete. That's a really good deal when you consider you're basically buying a whole computer here. It's obviously not a whole computer because it's got to be set up through network connection, like a browser-based, web-based setup. But it's like a computer that's dedicated as a NAS. And the whole point of the NAS is to be able to do everything through other computers on the network, not to use this necessarily directly. Otherwise, you might as well just use a computer and share a resource on it. So this has a lot more bells, whistles, and features designed for file access, not only on a local area network, but even making your own cloud. Farsman says that I missed the solution to the HP problem. No, nobody has provided it to me yet. I'm still awaiting more suggestions from viewers. Please understand that while I appreciate those of you who watch every video of mine, there are people who watch my videos like once every 2 weeks, or they've never seen my videos before. And I want to give people who always claim to know what the answers are after I provide the answers, I want to give them ample time to respond so that they can't say they didn't get a chance because I did it too quickly. So we're going to wait, and we're going to continue to monitor responses. I'm really looking for somebody to think outside of the box. Nothing wrong with using Google to educate yourself, but to copy and paste Google isn't the answer I'm looking for necessarily, but rather that you're able to understand the information that you're reading and then come up with your own solution that you think will fix it based on the information you have versus just copying and pasting. Copying and pasting is possible that it could be fixed that way, but I would like to see somebody offer up something other than the standard sort of basics. I'm getting a lot of the basics. Nothing about that particular problem is basic, so we're going to give it some time. And I have other things pressing. So since these other things are pressing, that gives other people on the worldwide internet a chance to see that video and a chance to participate with it. Okay, let's see. So in the bottom of the box now, we've got our power adapter, our power cord, which is just a standard PC power cord. We have 2 heat sinks for M.2 drives. Is that 2? 4 heat sink. That makes more sense. A bunch of thermal tape. and an Ethernet cable. I don't know why routers and NAS devices come with an Ethernet cable. I mean, I would assume if you're buying one of these, you already have an Ethernet cable, but I guess if you don't, there you go. And this is a standard PC power cord, so I don't need to use that specific one. And that down there. Get here. Just need to clear some space. Put my box in the box. Put that in the box. All right, so I'll just put that back in there for now and get it out of my way because my benches gets very easily crowded. All right, so the first thing we need to do is plug this in. I'm gonna bring it up to the camera and show you close up how it's equipped. So here on the front of the unit, we have our power button. We have two USB 3 ports here. Oh, that's not a power button. I think that's like a copy, a one-touch copy button. Power button's on the other side. That's our power button right there. We've got a USB port right here on the side and then ventilation. The other side is just ventilation. And the back of it, we've got two HDMI outs. That's so that you can run this as a media server and run the files direct, have this do the video decoding or encoding and feed it right out to a TV. We've got two 2.5 gig wired ports. You can also add a USB wireless compatible wireless network adapter. It'll slow everything down, but you could do it. We've got two more regular USB ports back here. We've got our Kensington lock and a recessed reset button. There's our two HDMIs. And then we have a barrel style power input. On the bottom, to open this up is a little weird. These feet, they have a little dimple right there where you can get your finger in there and pull the feet away. And you'll see it exposes the screw. And not one that you can turn by hand, unfortunately. It doesn't have like a little handle on it or a fold down bracket like a lot of times manufacturers will use. So I have to grab a small screwdriver. You can also use a coin. A lot of times a coin will fit in there. And let's see, where's my straight edge? There it is. And my glasses. I need my glasses. All right. So we just lift the feet up. Sometimes you can even turn the feet around. They're still held in. The foot has like a little leg. Foot has a leg on it. But if we rotate those around, now we have full access to the screws. Take out one. Two. There are ridges on the sides of the heads of the screws, so you can use your fingers if you can grip it. And let's see, 3. Okay. Now, personally, I don't think a NAS should have to require a screwdriver to get into it. So that's one thing I don't like about this QNAP. I think it should be much easier access to get in and out of this. Then once we have these out, I don't know, do the screws come out entirely or do they stay captive? I can't think they have to come out entirely. Yeah. And that's another thing I don't like. I wish they would be held captive. So you have to remove the screws, set them aside, don't lose them. But that's all there is to taking the back off of it. Still, it'd be nice if there was just a little latch you could move it, open it, and not have to deal with all this. Now, inside the unit, we've got our, let me just bring it up to the camera and I'll just show you. We have three there's three M.2s, 1, 2, 3. And then the fourth one goes this way. And we're going to put a drive in there, one drive at a time. And these top pieces here, they just pull up on that. You put the drive in, seat it down, and then push this down over the little half moon shape at the end of the drive. So there's no screws or anything to lock it in place. And then they've given us the heat sinks and the thermal tape, and they're recommending if you have a double-sided drive, which these are kind of double-sided, that you set thermal tape down onto the circuit board or onto the back of the NVMe, and then also on the top. That's why they've given us a bunch of these. So there's 2, 4, sticking to each other. So many M.2 thermal pads. Don't know why they give you so many. So the idea is that we'd put a thermal pad below it and on top of it. And then you take these heat sinks, and it doesn't appear that anything secures the heat sinks in place other than, nope, not even the little screw. I guess just the tackiness of the thermal tape is going to hold this on. And then when you put the bottom on, that's going to apply pressure down onto these heat sinks. I guess that's how it's working. So, see if we can get the overhead camera working. Top-down view of that for you guys. In. And we will turn this on. There it goes. And then we'll go over to camera, close-up camera. There we go. I want to bring that more towards me. So it looks like we can just take one of these here. Does look like a couple of them are longer than others. Case. Are they all the same? I guess it doesn't matter. Set it down. Now we're going to go in this way. Not quite sure I agree with putting a thermal pad on the bottom, but let's try it. In fact, what I would do, put the thermal pad here, make sure I'm going over those chips. These aren't necessarily chips that the ones we're worried about. The one we're worried about is the controller, which is towards this end. It's over here. Ugh, it's so sticky. Put that in the first position. Put it down. And then we push that little tab hole. And you're going to repeat this 4 times. We would grab the other thermal pad. Some would argue to peel the label off. The problem, though, is your warranty is all on that label. So I guess maybe if you took pictures of it first, I don't know. You guys might have a routine for that. I'm just going to go over it, though. It's not like that label's a big heat insulator or anything. Just obviously could get better heat dissipation without the label there. These drives, as I mentioned, they won't get that hot anyway. So just want to align this sticky stuff here. The front, just let that back. And we can just take the heatsink. It doesn't have a front or a back. So we just set that right on top. And when we put the lid down, the lid is going to, you screw it down, it's going to put pressure down onto that heatsink and to sandwich it down. It's going to keep it from falling off for sure. Interesting. This is, oh, by the way, I didn't show you the quick installation guide and extended warranties. Done all those steps. And you'll see there's double-sided M.2s where there's chips on both sides. Like a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte would probably only have chips on one side. A 4 terabyte will almost always have chips on both sides, at least in 2023 it will. And you'll see that the documentation is all just pictures. And you just put it back together, fire it up. Okay, so down, 3 to go. Still want to bring this a little bit closer to me. A little bit of a reach. This is just a weird, kind of wonky. It's like a retention peg. I don't know what I would call that. It's very strange. Grab the other thermal pad here. I sit on top. Really want that heatsink closest to the connector because that's primarily where the heat is that we're worried about is on the controller. Now, these drives may have been used in the RAID controller card previously, so they still may have a partition and format on them that I anticipate will still be there and we'll have to reset once we get this thing started up, as opposed to working with brand new drives fresh out of the box that won't need to be reset. Had it so good there for a minute. I think I'm gonna, yeah, I should be able to put the heatsink on, it's fine. So I figure out what I'm doing. Again, we want to be right up close to the connector. I feel like that one needs to be down. They are stuck on there pretty good though, I'll tell you. Looks good to me. And then this last one goes right up here on the top, very top area here. We're still going to have that leftover and that leftover. So they give us a couple spares, I guess, for replacements. Yes. So put them back and we'll keep them with the box. Agrinia says the camera is known as the virtual Mara. Virtual camera girl. I don't know why we just couldn't use a little M.2 screw. I would actually prefer that to these little plastic plugs. It's very unusual. I've never seen that used before to secure an M.2 drive. Kind of shaking my confidence that it's in there correct. And the last heat sink. So just slightly different from putting mechanical hard drives into a NAS. I don't know that it's any more or less time consuming. It's different. Then you can see these heat sinks are going to become flush. The top. And then we can take the bottom piece. That either goes on this way, or does it go on this way? I'm just curious if it would go on either way. Well, it's like the holes want to line up, but it won't sit down into the groove here. There's a little groove at the edge all the way around. It rests right down in that groove. And then when we tighten this down, it's going to put some pressure down on those heat sinks as well. And that's going to prevent them from dislodging. This is why they should be captive, or this is why they should just be a simple latch. This is kind of a pain. But you shouldn't be getting in here and doing this that often. I don't want to tighten them yet. And if these were Phillips screws, I could use my electric driver, but even a flat blade driver here has a hard time because that opening is so wide. It's, as I mentioned, it's like it's designed for a coin to go in there, which would have been fine if it didn't have so many threads. It's a much shallower screw, maybe a quarter the depth, that would have made more sense. To me, anyway. Okay, now we can tighten them all down. Don't over tighten. Just run them until they exhibit a lot of resistance, and don't take it further than that. We don't want to crack the plastic or strip out the screw. And we're probably going to need to open it up again at some point. Power adapter. Plug that in here. Then I just need a regular PC power cable. Let's go back over to camera 1. Turn this one off and get out of it. Oops. Okay, so I need to grab a power cable. Actually, I'll grab it from here. And I need a network cable. Plug that in to either of the Ethernet ports on the back. Now we can turn it on for the very first time. And while that's booting, I'm going to need to get a beep. I need to set up a mini PC here. We'll just use this one since it's right here. And we're going to utilize the mini PC to open up a web browser to access this and configure it. I'm not going to go through all the details and all the possibilities of all the apps that can be installed, just basic file configuration, file sharing. In a small office or in a home, you want to play with apps, you know, like Plex or, I don't know, other backup apps and tons of apps. Certainly explore that through other YouTube channels or look up more information from QNAP in that regard. There's always new apps coming out, older apps being updated, being secured better, etc. But then I also need another network cable. So I need a long network cable. One they included would be too short for me to use. So I'm going to go here into the other room. Just grab a standard network cable of the length that I need here. And I need to plug this into the router and then into the back of the mini PC. I could hook the mini PC up to the router via Wi-Fi, but I don't really want to go through all that while I'm live worldwide. So this helps. Oh, whoops. This helps just make sure we have a good solid connection. We're not going to have any dropouts. Not exposing any personal information by mistake. Because the internet can be such a lovely place, you know. Yeah, definitely don't want to let your guard down on the internet. Just going to plug that in back here. So, geez, they're almost the same size. Okay, it's the QNAP. Still blinking and initializing, apparently. Let me move this out of the way. Let me get a keyboard and a mouse. Plug that into our mini PC over here. This on. This on. Plug in the keyboard and mouse. And now, hopefully that's booting. Let's see. HDMI input. Put myself in a corner. See if I can. Yep, that's booting. Good, good, good. So we need to find the QNAP. So we probably need a utility for that, I'm guessing. Open up a browser and we'll type in QNAP discovery software. I don't know, something like that. QFinder Pro. Well, that's exactly what I wanted. All right. The Essential Desktop utility, it'll find your QNAP on your network, it'll mount your shared folders, it'll give you a NAS firmware update. Well, it does everything right on. All right, we're going to grab that. I don't know if I downloaded it. This is stuff from previous videos. So if I go into my downloads folder, okay, where'd it go? Windows. Oh, I guess I didn't start downloading it. That explains it. There's our download right there. That's not too bad of a file size, which I'm covering up with camera 1. Let's dump camera 1 here for a second. And let me go full screen again. Let's launch this application. Close that. And hopefully, oh, we got to pick our region. Select your region. Global or China? Okay, that's pretty big. Allow access, so we can go through the firewall to find the NAS. It finds it right there. Double clicky. QNAP warranty and service. Don't care for that. Close. Welcome to the QTS Smart Installation System. Thank you for choosing QNAP. Smart Installation will guide you through the installation process. The process may take a few minutes depending on the installed hard drives. Start Smart Installation. Specify firmware version. Your current version is 5.01828. Latest available, check for updates. Okay. Latest version is 5.01. Next, and hit update. Might as well update it right now before we go any further. See how long this takes. While I'm waiting, I'm going to look in the chat room, see what you guys are talking about. If you guys have any comments or questions for me while I am taking a break here, waiting for this to install. Shane Perkins said having a cheap 4 or 5 port switch could be of help for instances like this. Yes, but it's in the way otherwise. And I do have one. You're making an assumption that I don't. It's just that I don't like to use it. It just adds more cables. And my router has an empty port on it. But when you're hooking up your NAS, I always recommend you plug it into your router or network switch, not into the computer directly. If you want a USB drive, then go buy a USB drive. If you want it on the network, when you set it up, put it on the network. I'm just saying, not that you couldn't do it the other way. I just don't know why you would. Let's see. Tyanor Shap says, hey, bro, what's up? What's up? Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining us. Doug Cole said it would be better if that back panel was held on with magnets. Hey, you know, that's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Paul O'Brien says, what's the max size SSD it'll do? The biggest you can buy. So whatever the biggest you can buy is. So I believe the largest NVMe you can buy is 8 terabytes. 8 terabytes is going to be its maximum. That's partially what updates are for. So as new drive technologies come out in the future, as long as they maintain the NVMe standard and their increasing capacities, the unit has the ability to update the firmware to acknowledge those, because the data protocols that they use to communicate won't change simply because the capacity changed. Do we have an update on TerraMaster? I've been using it off and on, and I'm very impressed with it, quite honestly. It's quiet, and it's very responsive. It's very snappy. I like it. As for the apps and functionality of those apps, I don't use any apps on any of my NASs. So, for file sharing on my network, it does seem to perform better than the ASUS store does, even though the TerraMaster that I'm using is a 2-drive RAID 1 array with two 22 terabyte drives in it. So I have a total of 22 terabytes that I can use as storage. And then the other 22 terabyte drive just mirrors it. So if any one of those drives fails, then the other one has all the data. So yeah, no, I really want to like that ASUS store, Flash Store 6, but it's just a little slow. Ron Barnish says, check your phone, Carey. Hey, great idea. Well, we're waiting. Take a look here and see what I'm missing over here. Let's see. Aha. Ron Barnish submits an Amazon gift card. Oh, it's his birthday today. Say happy birthday to Ron Barnish. It's his birthday and I get the present. That's what he says. A $10 Amazon gift card. Right on. Thank you for that. And happy birthday to you, my friend. Hope you have a great day today. And I hope you get a lot of happy birthdays from members in our chat room. I should say just members, guests in our chat room. You don't have to be a member to be in our chat room. Guess that's it. Okay. NAS is restarting. Well, this process seems to take a while. Seems like it takes longer to do this on the QNAP than it does on the TerraMaster or the Synology or the ASUS store. But I might be, my inner clock may be off. Maybe it takes just as long. It just feels like this takes a little longer, but this isn't something that's going to be done very often. And you can automate it to happen at night anyway. So you don't even have to be awake while it happens, and take as long as it wants in that situation. Edward wants to know, can you back it up to the cloud like Office 365, Magnus Box, or other cloud systems? Yes. As far as I know, all NASs will do that. At least all NASs from the big manufacturers like Synology, QNAP, TerraMaster, and ASUS store. Okay, we are 65 seconds away from restarting, I guess. And then we can do our first time setup. So everything's going to look very, very similar to what we're accustomed to seeing in Synology. It's sort of like a Windows 10 versus Windows 11. It's kind of the same things, moved around a little different. Very similar functionality, but a different looking icon. It might even give it a different name. Instead of control panel, you might have settings, but then Windows does the same thing too. But they do these little things between manufacturers to differentiate themselves and to not get sued for, basically copying what the competitor's doing. So it's almost required that they have to make it look different or name it differently, or even have its functionality, well, it essentially accomplishes the same tasks. The way that you set it up and the way that it looks is different. And that keeps them unique, and again, it keeps them from being sued. And of course, they probably think their way is more intuitive and more efficient. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and the NAS is restarting. So we start over again. Close, I don't need to check the warranty. Start the smart installation. Now we're on version 5.0.12425. Check for update. There's an update to this update, 5.122533. That's interesting. Let's update again. Just like you see me do with Microsoft Windows when I do a clean install. We go to Windows Update, we download, install all the found updates, we reboot, we go back to Windows Update, we look for updates to those updates, let those download and install, reboot, and we repeat this process until when we go to Windows Update, it says there's no more updates. This is what's to be expected anytime you unbox a brand new computer or a brand new router or a brand new NAS. Sometimes you get just the latest firmware, and other times you have to get them like they build on each other. It depends on how the manufacturer chooses to do it. And while we're waiting, I guess I can put camera 1 back in the corner. I'm not going to be hiding anything. And let's see what's going on in the chat. Oh, look at all those happy birthdays Ron is getting. Right on. Edward wants to know, can I purchase a cheap Celeron PC, install Linux and 2 NVMe cards, and make my own NAS? Yeah, you could also go buy some sandals and some electrical tape and make your own shoes. I wouldn't stop you from that. This is not what this video is about. I don't do garage type work. I wouldn't put anything like that in a professional business. It's sort of a cheap cutting corners way, is a hobbyist or an enthusiast thing. This is going to a business where the data it's going to store is mission critical. People's ability to make their house payment and buy groceries, to live, depends on this data. This is nothing to go cheap on. If you want to experiment around with free NAS or true NAS, or taking some old piece of hardware and setting it up in a home lab, I don't do that on my channel. As a professional working in the industry, I want to show you the way the professionals do things and the reason why. A lot of it has to do with support. It also has to do with the footprint, the power consumption, and of course the work. A lot of the work that would have to be done to set up your own network attached storage is already done for us. And if there's anything wrong with it, we have a finger to point to blame, company to sue potentially if there's a breach or security issue. When you set up stuff in your own home, then there's no regulation. You just do whatever you want. But I don't do that as a professional. And I wouldn't want to, because at the end of the day, it requires more maintenance. It uses more power, so it costs more money to run it. It takes up more space. It's more likely to fail. And customers, when they get inconvenienced due to failures, even if I'm taking care of it, it's still inconveniencing to them. And it makes it look like I don't know what I'm doing. So if something happens to this unit and it goes down and they call me, then I can take it out to QNAP. And if I lose a customer as a result of it, or the customer's suing me because of something that happened in a loss of data situation, I can turn around and hold QNAP accountable. If you want to mess around with free stuff and just pull stuff off the network, off the internet, and build your own little fun little projects, yes, you absolutely can do that, but that's not what I do. Ron is 81 years old. Wow, happy 81st birthday. This thing's awfully chatty. It's been beeping at me a few times here for, I don't know why, but apparently something that's reminding us it's doing a firmware update and to leave it alone. You could buy a TerraMaster and you could put like true NAS on it and effectively have a home lab type NAS without, once again, having the massive power, comparatively massive power consumption and the amount of space it takes to have a computer that you're going to have a keyboard, a mouse, and a monitor hooked up to versus just this little freestanding box. So with TerraMaster, you can use the freestanding box and just replace their TerraMaster software with, like TrueNAS or something like that. There's videos on YouTube that show you how to do that. What's my opinion on Western Digital NASs? Well, I don't think Western Digital's really updated the NAS in 8 years. They're still selling the same model, exactly the same model. Marlena had a Western Digital NAS. She absolutely loved it. I've never used one in a professional environment. I consider the Western Digital NAS to be for a hobbyist. But I can't see any reason why it would vary, at least in the way that I'm using them in an office, other than I would want more support, more updates. It seems like Western Digital has neglected it. That I don't see them pursuing any new NAS units. And we did review that EX4100 from Western Digital here on the channel. Interested in it. It's still sold brand new today. So why you would buy an 8-year-old NAS, beyond me. When you get these, you need to set some time aside in your day to do this. It's not something you're like, oh, let me just do this real quick. When you're doing your first time setup, it's really important. Take your time, and ideally do it all right the first time so that you can immediately start enjoying it, not have to keep going back and making adjustments and changes. But that's just my recommendation. You can certainly do it however you want to. I'm just demonstrating to you how I do it as a professional, being paid by my clients and being held accountable for the work that I do. And so there's a certain method to my madness that is both a balance of being efficient, but also being cautious. So customer needs this like yesterday. Pulling 3 terabytes of data down from the cloud to put on here, it will probably take a week or longer of just download time. And I can't do that here because it would exceed my bandwidth limit, which is 1.25 terabytes a month. They're going to almost triple that with just getting their data down. So they can do that at their office. I'm not doing it here. Let's see, where are we at here? We'll get rid of camera 1 again. We're back to square one. So again, it's just like starting it up for the first time, smart installation. Terms of use, accept the license agreement. Current version 512.2533, check for updates. The current firmware version is up to date. Yay! Next, we can finally move past this screen. See, it's worth it to just get it done and out of the way. We got a long NAS name here. I'm going to leave that in place for now. I'm going to choose the name admin, which it probably isn't going to like. We'll put in a weak password. Oh, they have to must contain upper and lower characters. Okay. Do that. Oh, maybe it's going to accept that. Let's see. taking it. Won't let me use the name admin. Okay, so I'll just use the name Carey. Already has the right time zone. That's impressive. Oh, I see. Same as computer device. Ah, you see what they did there? Very clever. Let's just synchronize with the time server automatically. Next. Obtain an IP address automatically. Next. When firmware updates, notify me. Do not automatically install the latest updates. And do that at 1 o'clock in the morning daily. Yeah, all that looks good. Hit apply. System clears all drive data. Yeah. Here we go. Well, as says you can do the same thing on an ASUS store NAS. What's that? What are you referring to? Most NASs all do all the exact same things. What I'm trying to tell you, all the major brands like ASUS Store, TerraMaster, QNAP, Synology, all pretty much do the same thing. They just call it different names or make it look a little different. Oh, you're talking about replacing the operating system? Yeah. Paul O'Brien said that looks so simple to set up. Yeah, I think the QNAP setup takes a little longer, but it actually automates a lot of it for you. Like with regards to the storage pool setup or the RAID configuration, you can just stick with the defaults. Because if I do it manually, I'm likely going to put all the same settings in manually for the type of RAID I want, the size of my shared volume. But I do need to do things that I like turning on the guest account so anybody on the network can access the shared folders. I turn off any external access so nobody can get in from outside. Basically, what I have the employees do is remote in. So if they want access from home, let's say, they use a remote access program to log into their computer at work, and their computer at work has access to the NAS at work. It is possible to turn on cloud-based storage and access, but it is a security vulnerability potentially. If it's, if you put a door in, even if you lock the door, you've got a place where people could potentially break in. If we never have the door to begin with, breaking in is a lot harder. So my preference is you can only access this from in the building. So you need to remote in from your home computer to your work computer. Once you're on your work computer, then it's just like you're on your work computer at work and you would access everything the same. That being said, if customers don't like that, I can configure it however they want it, but that's my recommendation for them for security for, a large company dealing with the trust of their customers, having a lot of personal information about their customers on this. So, let's see. Let's say now. Oh, wait, let me get rid of camera one again. And let's go back to screen E. Congratulations, you finished all the steps for quick configuration. If you cannot connect to the NAS administration page, please use QNAP QFinder to locate your NAS. Go to NAS Management. Data privacy, yeah. See notice. So this is going to look very familiar, right? The ASUS store homepage looks like this. The Synology page kind of looks like this. This kind of guides you through where everything is. Main menu, control panel, app center, access your account settings, NAS power settings. Welcome to storage solution and snapshots. Now, I'm not a big fan of doing these snapshots. I'm going to say, let's see if we go to next. And then there's different types of snapshots you can do that explains all of this. Let's click new storage pool, system data collection agreement. You're allowed QNAP to collect limited system. I don't want to do. No, thank you. M.2-1. Good health. Oh, there's got to be an easier way to do it. Probably just hit M.2. No overview. 3%. And 4. All right, so I don't remember my way around here, but we'll just take a look at and read what's on the screen. So under storage, there we go. 4 terabytes each. Details of each drive, storage and snapshots. I will disable this because this will eat up your drive space very quickly. It says no volumes or storage pools. Please click new volume to add a new volume or click new storage pool to add a new storage pool. Well, we need a pool before we can have a volume. New storage pool. Create a storage pool to manage the storage space in the enclosure. Storage pool contains multiple physical disks combines into one flexible storage space. It may contain one or more RAID groups. You can create volumes and LUNs in a storage pool. Oh. Okay, let's see what we got. Quiet. QTier is an automated tiering storage solution that automatically moves frequently accessed data to high performance drives. Yeah, we don't need that because these are solid state drives. This is a mechanical drive feature. Security, SED, a self-encrypting drive. No, I don't want that either. Next. Select and configure disks. Well, we want all of the disks. So check that box. All 4. RAID type 5. Yeah, that's what I want. Estimated capacity is going to be 11.16 terabytes, which is 12 terabytes. I know you're going to say, well, you round down, but this is bad math. This is gigabytes versus gigabytes. Anyway, it's right. Next. SSD over provisioning at 5%. That's to reserve space on the SSDs to improve write performance. You might find the optimal over provisioning ratio for your SSDs by running the SSD profiling tool. That's fine. Alert threshold when we get to 80% capacity. Yeah, that sounds good too. Estimated unallocated space, 8.48. Yeah, so in other words, when it gets to 8.48, it should alert us. Because we should have a total of 12 minus, say, half of that, so 11.5 for the over provisioning, I guess. Next, here's a summary of everything we've selected. Full guaranteed snapshot space. See, I don't want to lose 2 terabytes to snapshots. I don't recall being asked. Do not recall being asked about reserving space for, oh, right there. I just glanced over it. Okay, so I'm going to uncheck that box because I'm not going to use snapshot. We use our own backups. That's much better. Okay, so that's going to give us a space. RAID 5. Create. All the data will be erased. So all the data that was on those NVMe drives, if there was any configuration or anything, we will wipe those out and treat these as though they were brand new. Gary wants to know, does it use BTRFS for a file system? Well, you should know if it didn't, I wouldn't use it. But we'll verify that here when we go to create our volume. First, we have to create the pool. So it's doing that right now. After that, we can then create the volume, and then in that we can determine file system. But yeah, it should default to the B-tree file system, BTRFS, sometimes called Butterfuss. Yep. Skeleton D says hello. Welcome in, as does William Dawson. Earl Palmater says hello. Welcome in, Earl. Robert says, consider recreating with a new volume. Select static volume, which will yield even better performance than storage pools, as it does not allow for snapshots, which you like to stay away from. Interesting consideration. I only use NASs with storage pools, and there are some apps, if you're going to use them, that require the storage pool, but certainly worth considering. I appreciate the information. Says our storage pool's been created. And now we need a new volume. So we'll hit new volume. We've got on-demand space. We've got pre-configured space. And we've got a traditional configuration, which is, I think, what we want. Just a static volume. The pre-configured space is interesting here, but that assumes you're going to just keep messing around with it and adjusting it. We want to just set this up once and then not have to deal with it for a few years when the customer starts to outgrow it. So I think just a static volume is what we want. We'll hit next. select and configure disk. See any? What happens after this? No data, no disk selected. What did I miss here? Ellie says, don't choose a static volume. Thin is best. Static cannot be undone. I don't want it to ever be undone. Once it's set, it should stay that way. I don't know why it's not showing the volume, the storage pool we created. Hit cancel here. Storage pool 1 is ready and synchronizing. Create new volume. Oh. Didn't mean to go under snapshot. Storage. No, new volume. Yeah, I guess that's why it's not showing it to us. It's got to somehow finish whatever this is synchronizing. Let's see. 8. Volume. No, it looks like I'm going to have to be patient on this one, guys. Interestingly, it offers cache acceleration, which is traditionally needed for primarily traditional NASs with mechanical drives. But I wonder if you sacrificed one of your slots to use one for cache, if it wouldn't just be slowing it down. I wonder if that's just a carryover from the mechanical drive NAS. And there's the option for external storage, right? Putting a USB drive on it. Topology. No applicable, just a bunch of disks enclosures detected. Storage. Yeah, I'm going to stumble around here a little bit because this is very different from the way TerraMaster, ASUS Store, and Synology do. I'm most familiar with Synology. I've been using them most frequently. As a result, I'm more familiar knowing my way around on a Synology OS, DSM. Yeah, it's just not going to let me in there yet. It is busy. Let's close that now. Then we've got a bunch of started stuff here. I'm going to get rid of that. So the idea is that we want to create a large shared volume, as big as the capacity as we can get it. We don't want snapshots. We don't want other volumes for other things, just the one volume. And we put in our folders, and then we, if necessary, can restrict access to the folders if we want to. But in general, we open it up to everybody, and we want to use the maximum amount of space we have available rather than setting in voluntary limitations and barriers that we will eventually bump up against. So if we bump up against any barriers, then I want it to be the capacity of the drives, not resizing a volume or removing a volume if we have too many volumes. We try to keep this super simple, very straightforward. See under network. I like how it kind of takes you through this walkthrough. One, adapter two. Resource monitor. Okay. Look at that. This is what I was looking for the whole time. We can enable SMB multi-channel if we want to, and we can use both 2.5 gig ports at the same time. Interesting. All right, is it going to let me create a volume now, or have I not stalled enough? Let's see. General settings, what's in here? System administration, time. Okay. Nothing I really care about. Bunch of messages up here. Got a little single pane of glass solution here. Running background tasks. Well, I thought I could use it while this was happening. RAID scrubbing. Yes, we definitely want to do RAID scrubbing. I'd say monthly on the first day of the month. And we'll do it at 2 o'clock in the morning. Auto reclaim an SSD trim schedule. Would do that once a week. And I would do it on a Saturday at 2 a.m. Good. Friday night. Scheduled file system check. Let's add that. Wait a minute. It doesn't have a it's not going to repeat this task. SSD life remaining warning. Good. Yeah, snapshots I don't. Aren't snapshots space spanning. I guess this doesn't matter if I'm not using them. I think this only if we've turned snapshots on, then these become applicable. So we'll just leave that for now. I'll know if that's turned on or not because the disk space will be growing rapidly day to day. Oops. Yeah, I will definitely turn that off. I'm not sure I've turned it off. Okay, so we need to make a volume. I've just lost that screen. I don't think it's going to let me do it anyway because it still says it's synchronizing. I don't know why it's taking so long. I think I've done something different this time than I did last time. I don't recall the other one I set up taking this long. Although we only put 4 1 terabyte drives in that one. This one's got 4 4 terabyte drives, so I guess that's going to take 3 times longer, 4 times longer. Hmm. Take a look at the chat room and see what you guys are saying here while we're waiting on this thing. Are you able to tie an access-based permission on Active Directory rules? I have no idea. I don't work with Active Directory. Michael Dane joins us, says hello, welcome in. Michael Dane, he's the man. All right, let's see. I thought it would be under storage and snapshots. And under storage, I should be able to create a volume in storage. No volume. Right. Volume creation wizard. That. Yeah, I really want. Everything sounds right on the static volume for what we want for this customer. And so since the drive is not appearing, my guess is that we cannot move forward until the drive synchronization completes. And depending on the amount of capacity you've got, this could take a while. Normally, on other like Synology and ASUS store, this will run in the background and permit you to create your shares, your volumes. So let's see, pre-configured space is for better access performance. It can be expanded. We're only going to have one volume. We will not be creating more than one. So a thin is absolutely out of the question. A thick volume, just out of curiosity, if I select that. Location storage pool. Create storage pool. Just a static volume doesn't offer us anything. With regards to location, it doesn't seem to, yeah, that's kind of weird. So I can choose thick volume, probably going to be okay. Whoops, too quickly. Location storage pool. Next. Setting the maximum capacity. I'm going to call the volume that's fine. Volume encryption, no, I don't need that. This is our overview of everything. Finish. So now the unit's doing two things, right? It's still synchronizing that RAID array, and at the same time, it's creating a new storage pool, volume rather. It's verifying the storage pool while it's creating a volume within the storage pool, which is what I was trying to get it to do. So I guess thick volume is what I wanted. Shouldn't have to wait for that process to complete. That's what we used to do back when I was setting up like Seagate Black Armor NASs. What was that, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? I think it was 20 years ago. And they're like, well, we can let that run in the background and you can keep configuring it. It used to make you have to wait for that to finish. So we'll see how this works out for us here. I guess I can go back over to camera 1. And Okay, I'll keep an eye on that. I'll grab a cold Gatorade while I'm waiting. So if there's any questions you guys have about the NAS, I'll do my best to answer them. Also, if I don't know the answer, do watch the chat room. Many of our chat participants may be better versed in the QNAP arrangement of things. There are options that exist on these NASs for a reason. So for somebody to tell you, don't click this or do click that, they're making an assumption that you have the same use case scenario for the NAS as they do. It's not too helpful for somebody to do that unless they fully understand what the goal is you're trying to achieve versus the way they're anticipating they would use it. So the options exist to accommodate all the different needs that an owner of the NAS would have. And that's why you have choices. And those choices should be selected for your needs, not for somebody else's needs. And so I try to keep things as simple as possible. And one of the reasons this company is in the position they're in is because after I left, everybody that followed me just made things more complicated. And now untangling the mess of complication created by 4 or 5 other techs in the last 4 or 5 years, I just want to put it back to simple again. Oh, what's that say? I got to make it bigger. I can't read it. Turn off camera 1 here so I can see. Server is busy or the network is disconnected. Make sure the NAS can be reached to load this page. Sleep on me. Data volume is, what did it say? Looking for that message. Here you go. Let's see. Close that. Snapshots. Okay. Data volume 1 is ready. Good. So now it's a matter of setting up access to it. So I just want anybody on the network to have access to this. And let's go to the file explorer, file station, they call it. Let's create a new folder. Oh, no. It's already called public. So I want to go to users. Give them read and write access for everybody to the folder. And then we need to give everybody access. I think separately. Let's see here. Looking for permissions on the volume. In here somewhere. Security. Oh, okay. What is this? 192.168.1.63. Let's just search the network for that. See if it shows up. See, I don't want this to appear. Take care. Control panel, maybe? Privileges, users, user group, delegated administration, shared folders. And it's shared permission. Everyone has read-write access. Fine. Got to be a guest account option here. I'm guessing that I'm just not seeing. I mean, all that looks good to me, so once again, what if I just type in guest and hit enter? Is that all it wants? No, I'm missing it somewhere else. I really don't even want it to pop up. Question. Maximum storage capacity is 16 terabytes right now. No, because you in a RAID 5 you lose one of the 4 terabyte drives for parity. That's true of any RAID 5. So if you've got 4 drives, whether they're NVMe or mechanical drives, you lose 1 drive's capacity for redundancy. So you have the added capacity of 3 of the 4 drives in this case. It's guest access. Type it in. Search guest account. Oh, I think we just needed to create a guest account, but I would think that we don't have to create it. We simply have to enable it. It's likely disabled for security reasons. I just have to find it. Because I only see admin and Carey as users. But when I say everyone, I mean, it should fall under just a guest account. Everyone has read-write access. What am I missing? Got to be a guest account somewhere. Guest was disabled in permissions. In which permissions? What, I didn't see a guest. Unfortunately, the screen is so far away from me. I'm kind of struggling a little bit to read it here. Let's see. Shared folder. See. Shane says go to Control Panel, Network and File Services. All right, let's just close this out and start again. Control Panel, Network and File Services. In Mac NFS. Soft Networking. File Service. Server. Oh, there's your Active Directory and LDAP and SMB multi-channel. Same here. The guest access is usually associated to the share, not to the networking. Restrict anonymous users from accessing SMB shared folders. Disabled. Maybe that's where it is. Let's try that and see if that works. That works. You would thank you, because I wouldn't think to look there for that. Nope. Yeah, it's usually associated to the share. So it says, it mentions a guest account, but I don't know where the guest account is because, you know, again, it's usually disabled. So maybe under full panel. Hmm. Hmm. I mean, I shouldn't have to do it that way. There should be just a checkbox somewhere. Jane Perkins tries privilege shared folders. Shared folders. Select a shared folder. Folder permissions. Guest access. Oh, it's right there. Full access. There it is. Thank you, Shane. That should fix it. Okay, I'm better about that now. It let me in. It let me in. Hey, so we have access now. Hallelujah. Now, there's still more we can go through, you know, to set things up. But the amount of data this customer has is going to require sorry, I'm drifting off here. The number of the amount of data that this customer needs to have moved over is terabytes. And so we can't even begin to use this to release it out to the employees until all the data has been copied over to it. Then, and even perhaps while it's doing that, we can go through and fine tune some of the settings and things like notifications. This thing will notify you out the wazoo. So we want to just restrict notifications to items that I'm interested in, like firmware updates, outages, issues. But I don't want to be alerted every time it checks for new app updates every day and get an email. You get 2 emails every night. It will say checking for app updates and app updates check complete with nothing new found. That just gets old real quick. And of course, you can compile them to send it once a week, but then you still have just a bunch of redundant information just repeating itself. So if there is no event, I don't need to know about it. I only need to know when there is an event. And at that, it's got to be an event worth telling me about. So a drive failure, for example, and if the machine's been powered off unexpectedly, I'd like to know. Let's see. We go to my computer here. Disconnect. This was the TerraMaster that we had mapped prior. Let's disconnect it. And then let's go up to computer, map network drive. Can we browse for it? We can. There it is. Finish. And here we've got 10.3 terabytes available. Perfect. That gives us our SSD provisioning overhead of 512 gigs. And again, if you look at that 10.3, that's gigabytes. The actual number right down here, 11 point, what is it? 11.3, oh, yeah, 11.36. Not a point, it's a comma. Takes this number capacity, converts it to this number here that's 10.3. They're the same number. It's maddening because they're using two different mathematical formulas how they're calculating space. So that's your real number here. And this is your, what do they call that? Power of 10 number or something. It's gigabytes versus gigabytes. Gigabytes versus gigabytes. Gigabyte versus gigabyte. What's the difference? 1 gigabyte is defined as 1,000 to the power of something so tiny I cannot read it from all the way over here. Let me walk up to the screen. You guys can probably see it better than I can. To the power 1,000 to the power of 3. And 1 gigabyte is 1024 to the power of 3. And you see how they get to two different numbers there? And so now if we're looking at gig, and you've got 1,000 of those to a terabyte, and we've got 12 terabytes, that little offset gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It starts making a much bigger difference. And people are like, where did my space go? Because it's just being reported differently. Theo Joe did a great job explaining this. If you want to learn more about it, it's quite ridiculously confusing, in my opinion. Theo Joe gigabytes. Yeah. So I recommend, if you want to learn more about this, watch this video here.
If you've ever gone to buy a hard drive or SSD and you went to plug it in, you may have noticed that something doesn't add up. If it's a 1 terabyte drive, it'll only show as 931 gigabytes. If it's a 2 terabyte drive, it'll only show as 1.81, and so on. So
anyway,
what gives?
If you want to learn more about it, that's the video I suggest you watch. He does a great job explaining it. Close that out. And the NAS is ready for me to start copying data on. And that's all there is to the basic setup. Now, if you want to go into the NAS and see what's in the App Store and the kinds of apps that are available, we could certainly go back to browser, type in the IP address, which is 192.168.1.63. Log in. Go to the App Center. Skip all that. And then under All Apps, you have a lot to choose from. Synology has the most, but each NAS manufacturer is working on developing the largest library of apps to make their NAS more useful. So what they don't have today, they might have tomorrow. That are installed, My Apps. So we still need to set up notifications. There's a resource monitor. What's going on? Anyway, this thing is really snappy. It's really quick. It's really quiet as well. And I think this customer is going to love it. Firmware updates. Yeah, we haven't turned any of that on. Back in control panel, under firmware update, we can check again to see if it's changed its mind. Check for, yeah, we're fine. We're all up to date there. Okay, so you got your help center, your app center. You can set up your own cloud, snapshots and things like that. Like I said, I'm not a fan of that. It's a quick way to run out of space really fast. Just needs some management, constant management, which if I don't have it, I don't have to manage it. HDMI display applications. Interesting. Skype and Spotify are on. Okay. Lots of toys on here. Virtualization guide, we're not doing any of that. SCSI and Fiber Channel, we're not doing any of that. The malware removal, that's something that QNAP added, as you saw, that added that on its own. Good to have. We're not paying for it. It comes with the unit, I guess. So I'm happy with that. Still running the synchronization, and that's fine. It's just verifying that the RAID is intact, that there's nothing wrong with it. The bigger the RAID is, the longer this will take. Just let it run. It will likely, in most cases, come up with no problems, especially on new hardware. Okay, so let me leave this and let's go back over to camera 1. Let's take a look at the chat. Any final questions? Anything you want to know before we wrap this one up? We've been on now a little over 2 hours. I like to keep these right around the 2-hour mark. So just very quickly, if you have a question, if I can provide an answer, I will do my best. Zvi says the disadvantage of a system like this is if you do have an SSD malfunction, if an SSD fails and you need to replace it, it's not hot swappable. That's true. You definitely want to power the unit off, flip it upside down, get a screwdriver, take the bottom off of it. It's a hassle. Definitely not as fast of a swap. However, if a drive never fails, you'll never have to do that. So there is that. But I agree with you. I think the drive should be much faster to swap out. Like on the ASUS store, the Flash Store 6, getting in and out of there is pretty quick, although pretty sure you'd want to power, that needs to be powered off. You wouldn't want to do that hot swappable either. They're not in little cages to slide them in and out. So in either case, when you're dealing with M.2 drives, you don't want to hot swap an M.2 drive. At least not in 2023. Maybe that'll change in the months and years ahead. And Shane, thank you for your help today. That was very helpful. I appreciate that. Okay. Don't see any other questions coming in, so I guess we'll wrap it up. The drives we used and the NAS itself, the links are in the video notes below the video. The video, the Amazon links I make a small commission on. If you use those Amazon links to make a purchase, I make a small commission from that. I don't know who made the purchase or where they made the purchase. I only know that a purchase of a specific item for a specific price on a specific day took place. So I know how much Amazon owes me, right, in commissions. But it doesn't cost you any more money, and shipping and all that is all the same. The only difference is whether or not I get a little commission off of it. So if you use my links, I appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to our friends over at $300 Data Recovery. And if you ever need data recovery services because you did make a backup, you can have them restore your data far cheaper than any other data recovery service, professional, and higher rated on Yelp than any other data recovery service on the planet. Learn more at 300ddr.com and search the YouTube channel here, my channel, for interviews with $300 data recovery we've done in the past. It kind of gets into the detail, the nitty gritty of how it all works and how they're able to perform these miracles of resurrection of destroyed data, lost data. And also want to shout out our friends over at the VIP CDK deals. You can get legitimate Windows 10, Windows 11 licenses, Office 2016, 2019, 2021, legit license keys for about 80 to 90% off Microsoft's retail suggested price. And those keys are guaranteed. They will activate. You're not going to have to call Microsoft to activate. They activate automatically. If they don't for any reason, you reach out to them and let them know. When you activate Microsoft Office, that activation is only good for that install. So if you need to reinstall it a month later on the same machine, it's possible that that activation key says it was already used. That's Microsoft's doing that. When you put a license key in for Windows, it stays tied to the motherboard. So you only have to put the license key in once. And as long as you don't use that license key again, it'll stay tied to that motherboard. And if you have to reinstall Windows 10 or 11, you do so clean without a product key. Make sure you choose the right version. Like I'm always using the Pro version. Let it finish the install without the product key. Then connect it to the network, download your updates, and on your first reboot, you should see that your product key was automatically reassigned back to you, that Microsoft recognized the serial number of your motherboard when you connected. It's a little more complicated than that, but effectively, to keep things simple, they recognize your motherboard from before. They know which product key you used to activate that motherboard, so they just send it right back to you. It goes into your registry, and your Windows is automatically reactivated. You don't have to do anything to make that happen. It'll occur when you're getting your Windows updates. I wish Office worked that way, but it does not. If you're somebody who's constantly having to reinstall and you won't leave things alone, my advice to you is take an Acronis image of your system when everything's activated and working, and then just restore from the image rather than fresh installs. Or get yourself an Office 365 subscription, and that solves these problems. Most people, when they install a piece of software, they're not having to reinstall again anytime soon. So when I tell you the license codes are guaranteed to work, they will work. And if they don't work, the very first time you use them, you reach out to the folks over at VIP CDK Deals and they'll make it right. But after you've used it and it's activated, and then 3 months later, whatever, your hard drive dies or you just decided you want to reformat, it's quite possible that that Office product key will need to be purchased again. They're not promising you it's going to reactivate over and over and over again. And then on the Windows side of things, Microsoft makes it so that you only have to put the product key in once. It stays reserved and tied to that specific motherboard, even if you do change a hard drive or whatever. As long as you're not changing the board, it should come back and automatically reassign your product key and reactivate. It's really, really handy. I just want to set your expectations so that you don't have any unexpected surprises. And by making a system image when everything's installed and activated, when you restore to the same hardware, then it should restore activated as well. So you can avoid that runaround. And not only that, it's way faster just to do a restore than to sit around waiting for everything to install and update again. So food for thought. Bill Sony T said, I try to understand about NAS, but cannot figure it out. It's basically a USB drive, but instead of plugging into USB, it plugs into your router. And so anybody that's accessing your router on wireless or wired devices can share files. So if I have a Word document, let's say you and I are writing a book, and we're in the same building, whether it's a house or an office, and you're sitting over there and I'm sitting over here, and I edit, I don't know, I write 3 pages of the book and I save it onto the server, the NAS, network attached storage, and I tell you, proofread it for me. Then you go to the NAS, you open the file, you proofread it, make any changes, save it back on the NAS, you say, okay, I proofread it. We're not walking back and forth with a flash drive. It's all available at our mouse and keyboard. Now imagine an office that has 400 employees and they're all working on a lot of the same documents all the time. You need servers, you can't have all the files on one employee's computer and then that employee doesn't show up today or that computer breaks down. So we have a central location on site for which we can use to share files, share folders. We can't share programs. We can share the data. And of course, the more people that are involved, the more important that becomes. If I wanted to watch my YouTube videos throughout the house, independently away from YouTube, I could take all my YouTube videos, put them on the network attached storage, the NAS, then I can go to any television that has a connection to my router and pull those files up on multiple TVs at the same time. I wouldn't have to drag a DVD or the media from one unit to another, and while one person's watching it, somebody else can't watch it. With a NAS, multiple people could be watching the same movie or listening to the same song at the same time, and I can even make it available out through the cloud so that when I travel, let's say, I could have my video library and my music library available to me here on my phone if I want to set that up, or if I have employees that want to work from home and they need access to the NAS, we can offer it up that way as well. We could have cameras set up and we can have a camera surveillance station where it's recording all the footage onto the NAS, and then we can check our security footage by connecting to the NAS and looking through the security footage. There's a million different ways NASs are used in different platforms, depending on if you're in an office environment or if you're a regular home user. And it's for people that have a lot of data and more than one computer, and they want to be able to access the data from any computer, and potentially even when they're out of the building, could be half a world away, still have access to all their data. And that's essentially all a NAS is. We're taking the data out of an individual computer, which you have to be at that computer to access, and we're moving it to a device on the network in much the same way that Google is a device on a network. YouTube is a device on a network. This is putting a device on your network, and so you can control access to it. And how many people can access at the same time, who those people are, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so Shamim wants to know what I think of the average review on Amazon. The reviews I saw on Amazon, one person said it didn't work with the drives they used. I think that came out right when the unit was new and the firmware, there needed to be some updates to it. So I'm very happy with that review rating, having read what the negative reviews say. I find this unit to be very, very fast. As far as like reboot time or the firmware update time, that seems like it took a while longer, but not like a massive amount. Overall, the performance of day-to-day use on this, I'm very impressed with. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is the only review that matters, is what I think about it, not what you or some rando online left a review about. So if it's something you're interested in, it really doesn't matter what anybody else has to say about it. If you're intrigued by it and you like what you see, purchase one and let us know what you think about it. And you're not going to change my mind. Like, I like it. Nothing's good. If I tell you I like a hot dog and you say, well, wait till you see how they're made, I don't care. I still like the hot dog. You know what I mean? Like, I don't allow myself to be swayed based on somebody else's values. That's their values. When I'm making an initial purchase, I'm concerned about the average reviews before I make the purchase. But I'd say even at 4 stars, it's still a really good review. Considering there's not that many reviews, I think there's less than 30 reviews on Amazon. And the great thing with Amazon is if you don't like it, you have 30 days to send it back and get a full refund. So yeah, I don't know what anybody's talking about with it being slow as far as backing up data. This is much, much faster than the Synologies. This is one of the fastest. I'd say this and the TerraMaster are two of the fastest. And part of the thing that makes this fast is the CPU they're using. And this is a little bit warm, but not worryingly so. Certainly more warm on my left side, you're right, because this is clearly where the heat sinks are that are right up against the lid. So Yeah. And if you're using NVMe drives, they do get warm. That's just how they work. In fact, sometimes they work better when they're warm. They actually can improve performance when they're warm. Okay, well, that is going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining me, hanging out with me, for your assistance. Thank you for supporting the channel and for your contributions, your memberships, your super chats. I thank each and every one of you. A shout out to our friend Peter Laycock. Buster out there watching us from Scotland. We'll probably watch the video later tonight. My time, it's already late at night over there. So I'm sure he'll catch up and just give him a shout out and hello. And thank you for the kind words there in the chat. I appreciate you all, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.